Alrighty, so thank you everybody for joining me this evening. I'm Marianne Shearer, and if you're not sure who I am, somebody asked somebody else's, who is this person? Well, I'm just a very curious person who's had a whole lot of health issues in my life and was frightened into choosing healthy options by reading the medical encyclopedia that was in our house when we grew up, because we grew up on a farm, the doctors weren't nearby, and so my mother would look up stuff in a medical encyclopedia, and I took to looking at the pictures, frightening myself before I could read. And then when I could read, I found it very fascinating. The human body, I'm fascinated with it. It's the most miraculous organization, the most miraculous system that I've ever come across and read about. And I find it a lot of fun. I'm just looking at here, just, getting there's various physiology textbooks that I read, but I like to read them because they're all written quite differently. Some people will say one thing in one thing, like the pH of the stomach when you digest proteins, and one textbook will say one thing and the other one is slightly different. And the range of where iron should be in one blood test will be different. So it's not this exact science is what I've actually seen. They're kind of saying, well, it's best when it's there, and somebody else says it's best over here. And so I'm fascinated by the fact that the books are written so differently, and some of them are written really clearly. If you're looking for a good, if you're looking for a really nice physiology textbook that you can understand really well, and I encourage everybody to get a physiology textbook. The best one is by Elaine Marieb, M-A-R-I-E-B. There are other authors as well, but it's really easy to read. It's got nice charts. It's got nice pictures. This is kind of a really boring one, where there's just no pictures. Of course, we want pretty pictures, but this is just one of them. This has just got line drawings. This reminds me of Garton's physiology. Medical physiology. It's the same kind of book, and we tend to steer away from these things because we think, well, I don't know the language, I can't read that book. It reminds me of when people were told they couldn't read the Bible either, and it was only written in Latin, and it took Martin Luther nailing these theses to the cathedral door, and after having translated the Bible into German and making it available to the common man, when people realized, oh, hold on a second, I can read this. I'm in charge of my spiritual well-being, not somebody else. And you can't just make stuff up and tell me to do that. And that's one of the reasons I encourage everybody to be curious, to find out how your body works. Read physiology textbooks. Go online. If you don't have to get a physiology textbook, just type in, how does the digestive tract work? And there's a Google physiology, and the different physiology websites that you can go to and read. And the great ones are physiology for kids. They're very easy for us to understand. And don't be embarrassed if you're reading the kids ones, because very often it puts it in a simple language, easy to understand. Most of the physiology textbooks I read, I find them completely disjointed. I find they don't flow very easily. I'm not surprised most people don't know what to do with the human body. They kind of, well, let's look for the symptom over here and let's treat it with a drug or surgery. And that's very much the approach that is taken. And it's part of the reason we kind of hand over our bodies to just kind of, well, you take it along to a doctor or a specialist and you say, you fix me because I don't know what to do. I don't know how this body works. And it's our body. We have every right to understand how it works. In the same way as if you have a car, you can actually go and learn how to fix your car. You can do a mechanical course. You can do an internship. You can read books on it. You can watch movies on it. You can actually learn yourself. I mean, I love watching people going to Portugal and to Italy, and they go to this little mountain house and they start fixing it up, or they figuring out how to get the drainage right. I was watching one today, a couple from the UK who are both in IT and technology with computers, and they go off to Portugal and buy a home there on an acre of land. They said they have no experience with construction, and they learned everything. I was watching it. They were doing the plumbing, they were doing the electrical work according to the code, because they got a specialist in to show them how to do it. They were able to drain all the water away that was running all over the, in the basement of the house. And they were growing vegetables, and they had beautiful crops, and they'd never taken any lessons. They just got some books. They went online, they watched other people, and they did it. Well, if we can do that with fruit and vegetables, we can do it with a car. We can actually understand how our bodies work. And I have spent my life trying to teach people to take responsibility for their health, because there's such a sense of freedom when you know how your body works, you know how your digestive tract works, you know how your immune system works, you know how your heart works, your lungs, your liver, your kidneys, you know the right ideal diet to feed yourself. And then when you've got that confidence and you start taking responsibility for it, you start to get well, and your health just keeps improving. And as your health improves, so you develop confidence in the fact that you do actually know something about your body. So I'm out there just rooting for everybody, the common man, to take charge of your health. I'm not talking about going and being in a car accident, sitting there and stitching yourself back together. I'm not saying that. We need doctors when there are car accidents, but you certainly don't need to go every 5 minutes. You've got a sore head or a sore toe or a sore finger or a scratchy throat. Is what am I doing? Why is my throat sore? How does my immune system work? Ask these questions, and don't just stop at, for example, what we're dealing with tonight is, or today is, reflux, also known as GERD, which is gastroesophageal reflux disease is the name. GERD, gastroesophageal, which is your esophagus, and it has to do with the gastric system and the esophagus. And reflux means your food spills out back into your throat. And now they're calling it a disease. And I'm always fascinated with this. You know, it started off being heartburn in the old days when I was a kid. Everybody got heartburn or indigestion. And it just, you know, you took some bicarb, or you took some Rennies, or you took some Enos, you took something pretty, it was an antacid. You had too much acidity, and then it got called acid reflux, and now it's GERD. And so the names keep changing, and we feel we can't keep up with our conditions or diseases, if we want to call them that. But what I love is what Dr. Colin Campbell says in his book. He's probably the top nutritional biochemist in the world, and he wrote the book, The China Study. He was head of head of nutritional biochemistry at Cornell University. He's Professor Emeritus. And if you mention him in academic circles, in anybody who's studied academically and knows who's in the field, they will rate Dr. Colin Campbell as the top nutritional biochemist in the world today. But he's written a fantastic book called Whole, and I'm going to hold that up for you to actually see the title and the name, T. Colin Campbell. It's really about this reductionistic approach to health, where we look at ourselves and we look at one symptom and we say, let me treat the symptom, instead of looking at us and saying, something is wrong. I don't have reflux because I suffer from not enough antacid medication in my life. I'm suffering from reflux because of, and that's what I'm hoping to share with you. What I'm going to share with you tonight is, why do we get reflux? Why does it get so bad? I mean, it can get really bad to the point where it's just continuous and people are being told they need surgery. And before you do something drastic like surgery, I always say to people is, first, before you take medication, before you have surgery, first say, what can I do to help my body function properly? And if you understand that your endocrine system controls everything, your hormones, your digestive tract, your central nervous system, your brain, your immune system, then you focus on that system. And that's what I teach you on the 365 program. I teach you specifically how that system works so that you can take complete control, know how each system works, how it ties in with it in layman's language, so that you can explain it to somebody else and at least understand it yourself. Everything's written in a place where it's over here. And honestly, when I read it, I think it doesn't even make sense to the people that wrote it. Just, it's disjointed. It doesn't flow. It jumps all over the place. But most people wouldn't know that. They'll just read it and think, I'm stupid. And that's what I used to do. I used to think I must be stupid. I can't understand what they're saying. But I've written 7 books. Actually, I've written more than that. I've had 7 published books. And I can understand English and I can read it. And I've realized that I can. It's just the way people write and put materials together that is very conflicting. But I love what Dr. Colin Campbell says, because we tend to think that once we've got the genetic makeup for it, I've got the gene for whatever. I've got a gene for high blood pressure, my husband was told. I was told I had the gene for allergies and hay fever. I had the gene for bipolar disorder. So you think, well, there's nothing I can do about it. I'm just going to have to live with it, okay? So I love what Dr. Colin Campbell says in this book, in his book Whole, as I put up earlier on page 122, you can look it up. He explains very clearly how your parental genome or genome and your newborn genome, and then you've got disease genes, health genes and disease genes. Okay, there I've got it over there. Health genes, disease genes, and then it's kind of health genes result in health and disease genes result in disease. But what they show on the next page here is With nutritional intervention over here, we actually break this chain of command where the disease genes give an instruction for the disease. So in fact, with nutritional intervention, by changing your diet, you can change your genetic expression. And Dr. Colin Campbell's not the only one that says that. People like Dr. William Lee, who produced, he was very involved in researching a specific drug for angiogenesis, where blood cells, the body starts to produce blood cells to feed a tumor. And when your body starts to do that, it's not good. So he produced a drug which was anti-angiogenic or anti-angiogenesis, which stopped the blood vessels feeding the tumor. But the drug, to take it, would cost you $150,000 a year to use it, and people can't afford that. And he started thinking, there's got to be a natural way to do this. And here again, you find people that ask questions all over the world and in every section of the community, whether it's, rocket science or doctors or mothers or nurses, where people start asking questions. And we're actually discouraged from thinking critically. That's what asking questions does. It's a critical thinking approach. Why? And you drill down to what, but why? What? That's not good enough. I'm not suffering from gastric reflux because I've got too much acid in my stomach. How did the too much acid get there in the first place? And then you get confused because you'll go online and you'll have another doctor saying, it's got nothing to do with too much acid. It's actually from insufficient acidity in the stomach. So you actually need to drink, and his approach is natural. You need to drink apple cider vinegar. And I'm like, oh my word. I have seen basic physiology, and it's not guessing. The basic physiology is very, very clear when it comes to reflux and heartburn and indigestion as to how the digestive tract works. So I'm going to basically go through a little bit of the digestive tract and how it works, and then I'm just going to take my chart over here, and I hope you can see. I'm going to help you to understand how your digestive tract works. Let me just turn this a little bit that way. And then when you understand that, then you can realize it's not so complicated. Anybody can understand this stuff. Some of you may even remember it from school. So basically what happens is you have a digestive tract, which starts with your mouth, okay? So you've got your mouth. There's the mouth. Okay, let me put it like that. There's the mouth. Okay, and you've got your oesophagus, which goes down here, and then you've basically got this valve, or what is it also referred to as sphincter, which is basically closes and opens to let food down, but not let it back up. And then basically you've got your stomach over here. I'm just drawing it in circles. And then you've got the duodenum, and then you've got the small intestines, and you've got the large intestines. That's basically how it works. Okay, so. All right, so you're putting the food in your mouth, and if you're eating a carbohydrate, it has to break down into smaller molecules. Carbohydrates, and you might think, why the heck are we learning about this? But you understand now, okay? Carbohydrates need to break down. They come in long chains of glucose molecules. Okay. And the real name for that is a polysaccharide. Sometimes spelled with an H, depends on which country you're in, okay? Polysaccharide. And the job of the digestive tract is to take the nutrients and break them down into the smallest possible component so that you can absorb it. Otherwise, you end up with these partially digested molecules of food, and you end up with leaky gut. And very often you'll find people that have reflux or indigestion either have allergies or leaky gut syndrome or both, but they're problems with the way the gut is actually working. So your body has to break this down to a disaccharide, and a disaccharide is also known is basically two molecules, okay? And then once it's broken down into those two molecules, it breaks it further down into monosaccharide. I'm just going to put saccharide, which is individual molecules. And in this form of individual molecules broken down, you can absorb nutrients efficiently. Okay, so very important that you understand this, because then you'll understand what I'm talking about when I'm saying we shouldn't be eating proteins and starches at the same time, because that's the main reason we end up with reflux. We simply are eating in a way that is very complicated and complex. And it's difficult for our digestive tract to eat 5, 6 different foods or 12 different ingredients all at once. If you look at our ancestors, you look at people in rural communities around the world, you'll see that people ate very simply when our grandparents were around. Very simple. You didn't have all these different things. We didn't sit and watch the Food Channel and learn how to make like the most complicated and involved cakes that look like hats and motor cars and meals that, you know, look like they should be fed to the Sultan of Brunei because they're so complicated and so rich and there's, you know, 75 different ingredients in one thing. I know I'm exaggerating, but you know what I'm getting to is we've been taught to eat all these different foods mixed up together, and then we just expect our digestive tract to handle it. And it doesn't do it very efficiently. And when we end up with a problem, some people just belch or burp, and they pass gas below and they may fart. That's what happens with some people. With some people, the food just starts to ferment in the stomach, and we're going to have a look and see why that happens, okay? So basically what happens is you secrete an enzyme over here, referred to as tylen, or it's an amylase. Amylase is the surname and tylen is the first name, if you have to think about it. That's the one that's secreted in the digestive tract, in the mouth there, okay? So the process of breaking it down into a disaccharide happens here in your mouth. It goes down your digestive tract and in your stomach. It will continue to digest efficiently. The process starts here, and the process of digestion here will carry on as long as the pH of your stomach stays at a level of 4 and above. I'm going to draw the pH scale in a little while so you can understand what I'm saying there, okay? So if your digestive tract has a simple meal, let's say you ate a potato and you had an avocado with that or some tomato or I don't know, it's just you kept it very simple. If I look at how people eat in rural communities, you'll see that they normally have something like a starchy thing for maybe a flatbread or some bread, or they might have some fruit, and for their sort of mid-morning. They don't really eat 3 meals a day like we do. We end up eating 5, 6 meals a day because the food industry would like us to eat that many times a day, and that's why we end up with excess weight and digestive problems, and we end up with our whole body just not working as efficiently as it should. Never mind the processed and refined foods, we eat too much. And you'll find that the more naturally you eat, the more comfortable you are. End up eating maybe 1 to 3 meals maximum. Most people end up eating twice a day because most people in rural communities eat mid-morning and late afternoon. And again, it's very simple. It may just be vegetables. They don't eat animal protein every day. And the communities where they do, like the Maasai and the Inuits or the Eskimos, their life expectancy is 42 years. But when you look at rural communities, you'll find that they maybe kill an animal once a week because they can't afford to be killing animals every single day. Number one, animals cost a lot of money to raise, so they can't afford it. They don't end up with a huge supermarket just pumping out animals that are mass produced. They have raised these animals, and so they kill them maybe once a week, maybe once a month, and they don't usually have refrigeration, so there isn't a space to clean it. So they might kill an animal, the whole village comes together, they eat it, and so they tend to, and they don't sort of have cakes with it and dessert and wine and I don't know, breadsticks and all kinds of things that we mix together all at the same meal. So this process starts, carries on in the stomach, and then gets finished, it's completed and broken down to monosaccharides here in the duodenum. Whereas protein digestion is a bit more different. Let's have a look at protein digestion, okay? So if we're looking at protein digestion, we start in the mouth by chewing it. It's a mechanical process of digestion. There's no enzyme in your saliva that starts to break down starches, okay? Just going back to this, let's go back to that a little while. Here, there's no enzyme that's secreted in the stomach for starches at all. But there is one secreted for proteins, okay? So you have an amylase secreted in the mouth. It carries on digesting here. And then another amylase, same family, different first name, is secreted in the duodenum that gets it to monosaccharide. And then we can absorb carbohydrates efficiently. And we need carbohydrates. Some people would make us believe we don't need it. But if you look at the healthiest, longest living communities, they eat whole carbohydrates, whole grains, whole potatoes with the skin on. They don't have this, they're not frying potato chips on the corner. They are growing the food and eating it naturally. Whole grain rice, for example. And we need carbohydrates because they break down to glucose, because glucose is needed for your brain, your central nervous system, for every single cell. No cell can reproduce itself without glucose. And if you're not eating carbohydrates in your diet, your body's going to use a very expensive way of producing carbohydrates from fats and proteins. And that puts a lot of strain on your digestive tract and a lot of strain on your kidneys as well. So not a smart move. I've seen a couple of people I've had to deal with over the years who've developed kidney cancer from going onto a ketogenic type diet where there's no carbohydrates, it's high protein, very little plant food in it, okay? So we're not going into that tonight, going into more detail here, which is proteins require mechanical processing. So we need to chew them very well. They go down the esophagus and they go into the stomach, and in the stomach, we secrete hydrochloric acid, HCl. Can you see that there? Okay. The hydrochloric acid is secreted. Let me do it with the black one. Okay, hydrochloric acid is secreted, and that starts the process of digesting process by activating an enzyme called, I knew it 2 seconds ago, I'll tell you now. Hydrochloric acid activates pepsin. Pepsin, and pepsin is the enzyme that starts breaking down proteins into amino acids, okay? So glucose, carbohydrates break down into glucose molecules, protein breaks down into amino acids. Amino acids are the building blocks of protein. So when we eat nuts and seeds, most of the protein is quite broken down. It requires very little digestion compared to meat. But if you're eating meat, chicken, or fish, you cook it and then it coagulates, and it requires a lot of energy and a lot of hydrochloric acid to break down animal protein because it's been cooked. We can't eat it raw because then it's full of parasites, and that can cause a whole another set of problems, okay? So plant protein is much easier to break down for the body because it is usually not as cooked. We don't have to cook it to death to kill the parasites, and you can eat a lot of it raw, like you can eat nuts and seeds raw, for example. But legumes are high in protein, or they've got good quality protein in them. They're not as high as animal protein, but you can actually utilize them more efficiently. Okay, so protein breaks down to amino acids, and in this form, proteins also come in a long chain of amino acids, and then we break it down into amino acids, and in the form of amino acids, we can use it. And there's a reason for that. We produce, as human beings, over 100,000 different types of protein from amino acids. There are 22 or 23, depending on which textbook. Some say 20. See, there again, you have the textbooks not really agreeing on everything. But somewhere between 20 and 23 amino acids. And of that, your body can't make 8, and babies need 9, which they get from breast milk. So we need to break it down into amino acids. We're not pigs and chickens and cows, so we're going to break the pig, chicken, and cow protein down into amino acids, and then your body relinks it in different formations into over 100,000 different types of protein. So this process is very important. Once you're getting down to your small intestine again, there's not much enzyme activity that is dealing with this. But let's get to actually what's going on in the stomach and what actually happens. Now, reflux is not something that people enjoy. I mean, you get that terrible feeling like your food is going to spill out of your esophagus and into your throat. Some people actually find the food comes right back into their mouth, especially if they bend over after a meal. And it's a very, very debilitating thing to do because nobody really understands. I now know what it's like because I used to suffer from it as a kid all the time. I used to bend over and my food would want to come out my mouth. It was too disgusting for words. And you don't want to talk to anybody because you're kind of embarrassed about this food coming out. It's acidic. It burns your throat. You can have a whole lot of problems that occur. They can give them names like Barrett syndrome. They can call them all kinds of things. At the end of the day, it all stems from the same thing. Now, if you, as I say, read the physiology textbooks, it'll actually tell you that proteins digest best at a pH of between 2 and 3. And carbohydrates at 4 and above. That's in the stomach. Let's take a look at this. Do you remember the pH scale? Small p, capital H scale, which measures from 0 to 7 and 7 to 14. This is acidic. Acid, that's neutral, and this is alkaline. All right. So what we know for a fact is proteins digest. Now again here, some textbooks will say it's between 1.8 and 3.2, and some just say it's somewhere between 2 to 3. So this is where your protein digests best. You can digest protein ideally between, sorry, let me just drink some water. That's where protein starts to break down and continues to break down until you get amino acids. Carbohydrates digest best at a pH of 4 and above. I just want to check the color you can see well enough. I'm just going to put you at carbs or starches. Some people know them as starches. It's carbohydrates. Either way, it's the same thing. All right. So you don't need to be a rocket scientist or have studied chemistry. If you've done basic primary school chemistry, you will know that you can't have different pH measures, different measurements of acidity and alkalinity in the same container at the same time. It's very easy to understand. If I had to take this glass of water here and put it up and say to you, this, let's just get that over there, this glass of water, if I had to measure the pH of water, it on average it's 7. That's where it should be. Your body uses water at its best, most efficiently when the pH of the water is about 7, 6.8, 7.2. That's the ideal pH water. And if you look at all the top drinking waters around the world, like Evian, for example, they're sweetest. If you think of the waters you like the most, they have almost a sweetish taste. They're very pleasant. They don't dry your mouth out. They don't leave a weird aftertaste. Just nice. The pH is closest. That's where your body uses it the most efficiently, which is kind of going against the whole alkaline water thing. We're not supposed to be drinking alkaline water. It's supposed to be 7, okay? Either way, the issue is not the alkalinity of the water, is that it's 7. If I was to take lemon juice and squeeze it in there, or take, I don't have a lemon here, but if I went and squeezed tomato juice in here, but let's say lemon, because it works big. We'll pretend that this is a lemon over here. Where have I got something over here? Looks a bit like a lemon. And I squeeze some juice into this. The pH of lemon juice can be anywhere from, depends on how tart it is, anywhere from like 2, 3 to 5 or 6 if it's a sweeter one, okay? But if I was to squeeze the lemon juice into this glass of water, I would then end up with not the pH of lemon separately and the water separately. They would mix with each other. And instead of having a pH of, let's say, 3 from the lemon juice and 7 from the water, we would maybe end up with a pH of 5. So it's impossible. It's chemically and physically impossible to have 2 separate pH values in one stomach at the same time. And this is where all this trouble actually starts, because at the end of the day, you've got ideal pH here for protein is 2 to 3. Ideal pH for carbohydrates to carry on digesting. Remember, they started digesting in your mouth. They'll carry on in the stomach as long as the pH stays above that. But now you've got concentrated protein. You've eaten your chicken and you've had a potato. Your stomach registers there's concentrated protein in here. Let me produce a lot of hydrochloric acid to activate the enzyme pepsin that's going to break down the protein. But so what happens is, by secreting hydrochloric acid, which is extremely acidic, okay, your stomach can handle acid. It's got a layer of mucus, but continual onslaught of very low levels of acidity, like 1, 2 all the time, is also not good. That's the ideal place where protein digests, okay? So now the carbohydrates have come down. They've started digesting in your mouth. They're in a warm, moist place, which is the stomach, and the pH drops below 4, and what happens when it drops below 4, it completely cancels out. The digestion of starches just stops, okay? It just comes to a grinding halt. You got a partially digested potato or rice or slice of bread or whatever it is, carbohydrate, in your digestive tract, and it is warm, moist place. it's going to start fermenting. And the byproducts of fermentation are pretty easy to understand. They are alcohol. I'm not sure whether this is going to show up over there. Alcohol, acetic acid, which is very strong vinegar. It's very acidic, this, okay? And then ammonia. That's quite acidic. That's acidic. And then, of course, ammonia comes along. And it's known as the most powerful carcinogenic substance that we could put into our digestive tract, or one of the most powerful carcinogenic. It encourages the formation of cancer. So if you're making ammonia every time you eat your bacon and eggs for breakfast with your toast, or you have cereal with milk on it and an egg, you're having proteins and carbohydrates, you're producing tiny amounts of ammonia in the digestive tract at every meal. It's not surprising to know that the most common form of cancer in the westernized world is actually colorectal cancer. Cancer of the colon and the rectum. And part of that is due to the fact that we're producing a powerful carcinogenic substance in our digestive tract. So we're trying to avoid cancer of the digestive tract, stop this foods that fight, as somebody put them. In one debate I had, a doctor referred to it as the great apartheid diet. Well, you can call it what you want to, but it works. And I'll never forget the mother who came to me. It was some years back. She came to me and she said, I'm at my wit's end, Marianne. Somebody told me about you. I've come to see you to help me with my child. I said, what's the problem? She said, he was somewhere around 18 months, 2 years old. And she said, for the first nearly 2 years of his life, we have been from pediatrician to specialist to doctors to everybody, homeopaths, everybody they could think of, pills, powders, potions. This child has screamed non-stop, usually within an hour or two of eating a meal, sometimes longer. He would cramp. He would have such bad colic as a baby. Nothing worked for him. I asked her what she fed him as a baby. She said she breastfed him. And I said, what was your diet like when you were breastfeeding? She said, just, traditional. Cereal and milk and eggs and toast for breakfast. And for lunch, I might have a sandwich with cheese or with fish on it. And for supper, I might have chicken and potatoes or rice. And I said, well, I explained this process to her. And that child was now eating the same way the parents did. And I recommended to her that she eat either proteins or carbohydrates at a meal, and that her child eats either proteins or carbohydrates, but never the two together. And that you can eat neutral vegetables such as salad ingredients and things like, carrots and mushrooms and whatever other veggies you find in your garden, red peppers, those kinds of things. You can eat whatever vegetables you're comfortable with either the carbohydrates and the protein. And that's all I said to her. Just go home. And I actually gave her this food combining chart. Now, where did I put it? Okay. I developed this and got somebody to draw it up for us many, many years ago. And I'm bringing it up nice and closely to you so you can actually see it. I'm going to take it down to the bottom here. Here you've got your proteins. Okay, there you've got your proteins. I can actually bring that down a bit. You've got your proteins over there, and you've got your carbohydrates or your starches here. This is fish and chicken and eggs and meat and nuts and seeds. And this is your rice and your potatoes and your millet and your corn and all those types of starchy or carbohydrate foods over here. In the middle, you've got your neutral vegetables. And your neutral vegetables, if you have a look at that, are things like mushrooms and artichokes. It's A to Z, basically, all the way down. You can see it's a long list, and carrots and celery and courgettes and cucumbers and all that type of thing is over here. So you can eat the neutral vegetables with your starches, or you can eat the neutral vegetables with your proteins. It's that simple. So, for example, we started at home. We started making, we couldn't have spaghetti bolognese with meat in the bolognese, so I made a bolognese sauce with finely grated carrots and finely chopped mushrooms, which gave it a meaty texture. We weren't trying to be vegetarian in those days. We were just trying to not mix proteins and starches. And so we would have a bolognese sauce that had no meat in it, because at the end of the day, what makes bolognese is the tomato sauce. And I would sweeten it with some finely grated sweet potatoes that would sweeten it naturally, get rid of that real sort of tang from the tomatoes on the pasta. Voila. Mark stopped taking antacid medication, which he basically had lived on up until then. Every meal he used to walk around with antacid tablets that he would suck in the pockets of his suit and his clothing, and he would take. And when desperate, there were times we ran out. I used to get indigestion as well, but not as bad as Mark. There were times when we ran out of antacid medication. We would just take pure bicarbonate of soda, which neutralizes acidity. So you're taking that, but you're actually you're upsetting the whole balance of the digestive tract when you do that. It's not a good thing to do that. Any medication you take to reduce the acidity or increase it, not allowed to correct itself, actually causes problems. And in the long term, you could end up with H. pylori bacteria multiplying, and the next thing you got an ulcer, and they tell you, oh, it's an H. pylori. They checked it out, and you've got a lot in your digestive tract. That's what caused it. It's a weird thing to go and say that bacteria will cause ulcers. They don't. Bacteria come when there's food for them to feed on. So when there's pus and oozing and maybe a bit of bleeding, then you'll find that it's messy and the bacteria want to be there. They will go and feed on the pussy parts and the dead cells and things from the damage that's been done. So bacteria, it's like saying flies cause garbage. Flies don't cause garbage. Where you get garbage, the flies breed. There's food for them, and that's the H. pylori. There's food for them when there's inflammation and there's ulceration in the digestive tract. And we get ulcers from a whole lot of things, but when we have this excess acidity continually being produced in the digestive tract, because when this mess happens, when you've got trying to have two pH values at the same time in the same stomach, it doesn't work, and so the carbohydrates start fermenting. You get, as I said, the alcohol, acetic acid, ammonia, and of course you get gas. You get gas with that. So some people just get the gas and they get rid of it. Some people, there actually have been people that get drunk. They get inebriated after eating a meal where they're eating proteins and starches, and they don't realize they just feel weird. Some people are very, very sensitive to the alcohol. It's tiny amounts, but some people are very sensitive to it. And it's rare, but it happens. Okay, so what we need to be doing is have carbohydrates or proteins and the neutral vegetables in between. And it's not that complicated. Then we started making burgers, for example. We would take a big brown mushroom and we'd have that as a burger patty, and I made a seasoning with and put it on top, a pinch of nutmeg and some pepper in it. We call it our seasoning salt. We put that on top and we ate it. My husband was a burger connoisseur. He could go anywhere. In fact, he ran a mystery shopping business at one point in his life where he'd go around to restaurants and fast food outlets and rate their food on a scale. He had this whole system so that the head office could make sure that the people that were running the franchises were actually sticking to the recipes and doing things properly. And even in their company stores would make sure that the burger got there on time and wasn't cold and stuff like that. So he knew burgers. Well, he didn't want to ever eat a burger again with meat on it. He chose to either have a mushroom burger or I'd make a burger patty with rice and lentils and veggies and stuff, and I'd put all the seasoning that would go onto the meat into that, and he'd say it tastes like meat to me. And he was a big meat eater, so was I. But we started not mixing our proteins and starches, and we found that we were sleeping better at night. We had more energy, because you require a lot of energy to sort out this mess here. When this mess is going on, huge amount of energy is focused on the stomach. That's why you feel so tired. In the olden days, when we were growing up, we used to have a Sunday roast. It would be roast chicken or roast lamb with roast potatoes. There'd be dessert, traditional, lots of food, almost like having Christmas dinner once a week. And we would all be exhausted afterwards. So traditional, when you've eaten a big meal in the middle of the day, you just want to go and sleep. It's because all the energy is trying to sort out this big mess here. So one of the things you find is when you stop mixing proteins and starches, your energy levels go up considerably. And you actually need less sleep. It's amazing. I used to wake up feeling drugged every morning, and I wasn't consuming any drugs or alcohol. But I'd say to Mark, I feel like I've got a hangover, whatever a hangover feels like. I have this thick head. I can't think straight. And when we started eating proteins with neutral vegetables and carbohydrates with neutral vegetables, both of us woke up with more energy. Both of us stopped having any indigestion at all. And over the years of helping people, it's literally, they say to me, how can it be this simple? I've been to this doctor and that specialist and the next doctor and this one and that one and the next one. And like this mom said, she said afterwards, I've been to all these doctors 2 weeks or later, she came back to me and she started telling me, she said, you can't believe the change in my child. He is a different child altogether. He's never in pain. He doesn't cry anymore. He can sleep properly at night, and because he's sleeping, he's nicer to be around. We've fallen in love with him. He's such an amazing kid. My husband and I were under so much stress because of this child. We've actually reconnected again. So literally, their family had been saved by the simple thing that they were doing. And she said, then while she was talking to me, she started crying. She said, why didn't anybody else tell me this? And I said, well, if you read the physiology textbooks, on one page over here, it says the pH of protein digesting, the ideal pH for protein to digest is between 2 and 3, roughly, and carbohydrates is 4 and above. But it's not on the same page. One's on page 489, the other one's on page 502, for example. And so nobody's putting that stuff together. And I didn't discover this. I just read a book written by a man called Dr. William Howard Hay. And then there was an updated version of his book called Food Combining for Health in the early 1980s, maybe late 1970s, early 1980s, called Food Combining for Health. And it was actually Mark that saw this, and we read it, and his indigestion went, and my allergies went, and the heartburn went. That was a big thing. The indigestion went. The reflux went. That was just what was so amazing. It went, and our energy increased phenomenally, and it was just the most amazing thing for us. And so I started telling people about it, and they're kind of, oh, that's nonsense. It's not scientific. It's not this. It's not. That's why I started looking at the physiology books, textbooks, and seeing, but it does say that. It shows that it digests best at 2 to 3, and the carbohydrates there. So it makes sense. I studied chemistry and anatomy and physiology, so I know that this made sense. And when I explain it to people, they're like, yeah, it does make sense. Actually, we never thought about it. So it's not, there are other books written about this stuff, and I've written about it in my book, Perfect Health. There's a chapter in here called The Ins and Outs of Digestion. It's chapter 4, and it describes, there we go, ins and outs of digestion. There, you can get it there. Great chapter. You can read that. And at the back, there's a food combining chart. Doesn't look anywhere as pretty as the one I've just shown you. And that food combining chart and a copy of our little digestive booklet, it's nearly 40 pages long, that will be emailed to you if you send your email address to Mary Ann's, that's MaryAnns, MP for movie pictures or moving pictures, at gmail.com. So that's Mary Ann's, that's Ann without an E, no hyphens, maryannsmp@gmail.com. That's the only address you can send your request to if you'd like the food combining chart and the little digestive booklet that deals with a lot of different digestive problems, from constipation to irritable bowel syndrome and all things in between. Okay, so when we do this food combining thing, it's so simple that people can't actually get their heads around it. And it sounds complicated first, like, how am I going to eat my chicken and my roast potatoes? Well, add the chicken and the vegetables and the salad, or the roast potatoes, the salads, and the vegetables. So we started eating more we found that we were more satisfied eating the carbohydrate meals. So we had a choice between roast chicken. It was quite nice with the salad and veggies, but the roast potatoes were very delicious. So we started eating more and more plant-based meals and less animal-based meals. And so we actually found that every time we went out and ate meat in any shape, size, or color at somebody's home, which we weren't trying to not eat it, we found that we had to sleep a lot afterwards, and we got sore throats. And so we kind of drifted into being plant-based that way. And that took us, several years. And once we discovered we were vegetarian and we weren't even trying to be it, and a whole lot of other things cleared up as well. So you don't have to be vegetarian, but if you do, know that your health is just going to keep improving. Like my menstrual periods just went from 7 heavy days to 2 light days. Mark and I, any body odor we used to have just went. I mean, unless you, if you can have mild body odor first thing in the morning, but it's very mild when you're not eating animal products. When you eat them, it can be very strong. We don't use traditional deodorant. I just use a deodorant paste, which we have somebody make for us, which has got essential oils in it, and you just apply it, and there's no chemicals and harmful things. But many days you can just not use it at all because you don't have this terrible body odor. So a whole lot of things cleared up, cellulite, and we both lost weight and all of that kind of thing. But the most important thing for us was no more indigestion, no more sitting up sleeping. You know, if you've tried that, you sit up sleeping with all the pillows behind you and you're trying to like actually get a good night's sleep. Your sleep is sound and solid, and it is the most amazing thing to have that kind of sleep. You go to sleep and you sleep, and you're not tossing and turning and getting up and taking bicarb or an antacid or whatever it is, okay? So this is a very practical thing you can do, and there are another couple of things that I'm going to get you to do now. I'm going to tell you about. And this is from the little booklet that we can send you if you want it. Obviously, you need to email us because it's the only way to get it to you. Let me just get that open and up again. All right. So, where are we here? All right. So we're looking at now the suggestions I'm going to give you and the guidelines I'm going to give you are really pretty much going to help you with any digestive problem, not only with reflux. It can help particularly with irritable bowel syndrome. So the guidelines and symptoms will help with irritable bowel syndrome, and they help with reflux, GERD, Barrett syndrome, and anything else in between. And people have asked me, can the body repair itself? I have seen people diagnosed with Barrett syndrome where they've been told that sphincter into the esophagus is so damaged you have to have surgery. Or this is, the flap that's supposed to close it is going the other direction. Everybody has a different story and a different. Basically, I have seen, it doesn't matter what the story is, I have seen people digestive tract repair completely, especially when they combine food combining with fasting. And when I say fasting, I'm talking about not eating anything and just drinking water for at least 1 day a week to allow the healing to take place. So if you've got inflammation and your sphincter or your esophageal opening into from the stomach into the opening is damaged in any way, by resting your digestive tract and not feeding yourself any food, it can do the repair work. It's, if you took a hammer and you smashed it against your hand and you had a wound and you kept smashing it, the wound would get bigger and bigger and bigger, and you might lose the tip of your finger. Well, that's what happens with our stomach. We never give it a break. And the only way to give your stomach a break is to do what in the olden days they used to put a sign above your head saying "nil per mouth" before surgery. You weren't allowed to eat anything. And people don't seem to panic about that, maybe because there's a drip up their arm and they don't seem to notice it. But in the old days, before you had drips, you just couldn't eat. And you're not going to die. The average body contains enough nutrients, and I'll say average body, somebody who's not underweight, to last at least 40 days without any nutrients coming into the body. Now, obviously, if you're going to go run a marathon every day, you're going to have nutrition. But if you're being, walking and moving about quite slowly, it may be unpleasant for you to fast, but you do have enough nutrients. Usually the first 3 days are the worst part of fasting, okay? And we're not going to talk about fasting. It's a whole separate topic altogether. It is safe when it's done wisely and you understand process of fasting. Animals fast in the wild. When they are not well, they just stop eating. Your dog, your cat will just stop eating, and we panic and take them off to the doctor, the animal doctor, and they give them medicine to get them going and a tonic and everything else. But your animal's just saying, I'm not hungry. I don't want to eat right now. There's repair work that's needed in my body. And we don't do it. In westernized cultures, we don't allow our bodies to repair themselves. Not our animals, not our children. When your children don't eat, I remember as a kid when you didn't eat, I'm not hungry. No, you've got to have something. Just have jelly and custard or have some ice cream. So you were tempted with sweet junk because you didn't feel like eating and your body was telling you to not eat. And then if you don't pay attention to your body not telling you to eat and you keep eating, that's when you get really bad flu or you get really sick with something. So very important for us to listen to our bodies. And part of that is learning to also allowing the healing to take place is by fasting between 1 to 3 days. Now you can do 1 day a week or 3 days a month. It's entirely up to you. I found 1 day a week is probably easier for most people. If fasting is too frightening for you to even contemplate, well, what you could do is just stick to one type of fruit, like just a really simple fruit like apples, and just eat only apples for a day. Or what you could do is you could actually juice the apples. You could have apple juice and dilute it 50% with water, and you could sip that slowly throughout the day. That'll stop your blood sugar dropping really low, because some people's blood pressure and blood sugar can drop quite low when they're fasting. So if you're not used to it and you're nervous about it, but if you're on any of our programs, you'll see in our weekly Zoom sessions, we discuss things like fasting. And you're on the 365, you've got various detox programs to follow, 12 or 14 of them that you get to choose, and you can fast, and I'll encourage and help you in the Zoom sessions, okay? So, and in my book, Perfect Health, there is a section at the back on fasting and detoxification and what it actually means and how it can help you. So it's very important to get it in your head that you need to rest your digestive tract. Just like people shut down factories once a year to clean them up and do repair work, same way we go and we'll service our car. It's not working for a day. It goes and gets rested and everything's cleaned up. Your body is self-healing and self-cleaning. When you give it a break, it heals itself. So I have seen people with very severe conditions, digestive and other, like liver cancer, give their bodies the tools and the nutrients it needs to function efficiently, and then the body just heals itself. So I've seen, you could say your genetic makeup is XYZ, as I said, but we know you can change that genetic expression. Dr. Colin Campbell says it. Dr. William Lee says it. You can read up more on them. You can change your genetic expression by changing the way you live. And so that's what happens. By giving your body the break and allowing it to fast, the repair work can take place, and then this never comes back again. So you need to become friends with your digestive tract, not walk around thinking like my digestive tract's a mess, I'm in pain all the time. Give it a break, okay? Give your stomach a break and then feed it properly. So what are the other things that you need to do, okay? Right, so the first thing I would recommend that you do is stop eating so fast. It's a very common thing for people to learn to eat fast, especially if you're a parent and you've grown up and you've got these little kids and they're all needing to be fed, and then you need to eat somewhere in between. It's a very common, especially with the moms, but moms and dads can do the same thing. If you're very, very busy and you're very busy with your work and you're not somebody who thinks about food much, you'll just grab your food and eat it in the car thoughtlessly. So we need to be more thoughtful about the way we eat. We need to sit down and eat and chew. How do you slow it down? You count 15 chews, and then you slow the whole thing down. So you slow it down by chewing 15 times. And it's a lot of chewing, because I know I've done it myself. And every now and again, I get back into the habit of chewing too fast, and I've got to slow it down because I choke really easily. My throat is a little bit smaller than most people's. And so I'll choke on apples and carrots and things. And it's because I'm busy doing something else and I'm eating. So sit down and eat and chew. That's important, okay? So slow down and chew more, okay? And number 2 is you're eating too much. Your stomach is the size of a fist, okay? That's it, your fist. That's about the size of your stomach. So if you take an enormous plate of food, you take this is not an enormous plate. This is just quite a small one over here. This is just like just to compare it, that's a bread plate over there, okay? So you can compare the two together. A plate of food like this, you shouldn't eat more than that. Once you've chewed it, it'll fit in there quite comfortably. If you start to eat less and you just eat one plate and you push it away, you save a lot of money, because you think of all the extra food you prepare for everybody to have seconds and thirds. And I know food is delicious, but too much of it. And I was a compulsive overeater, and I still, if things are delicious, sometimes I just can't say no, and I have to actually push the plate away and get up and move away from the table, because if I don't, my stomach is uncomfortable. I've put too much food in. It's now not just being stretched like this, it's being stretched like this. If you get up from the table and you have to undo your pants or take your pants off or change your clothing because your belly is so full, then you have simply eaten too much. And you're actually putting a lot of stress in your stomach. And I know I've done this stuff, okay? I still, every now and again, I'll eat something, as I say, that's really delicious. I can do it with fruit, but the difference with fruit is eating a lot of fruit. You can feel uncomfortable for half an hour, and then you pee a lot of the water out, and your stomach is very comfortable. But with cooked food and mixed food, you really can feel horribly bloated. I mean, you can get up. I've seen people say, look at me, I'm pregnant. And yet in the morning when they wake up, their stomach is flat. So a lot of people, as they get older, start wearing only elasticized clothing. Men and women wear elasticized pants because they just stretch with you as your day goes along. And then when you get up in the morning, it's flat again. So it's too much. You're eating too much. One plate, push the plate away and chew slowly. Okay. When you chew more carefully, you get a lot more of that enzyme tylen in the secreting it from your salivary glands, and then the starches and carbohydrates digest more efficiently as well. Those are usually the foods we chew too fast. It's very difficult to swallow a whole chunk of meat, but you kind of do it with rice or potatoes. Chew carefully, okay? Then eating under stress. When you're very stressed, a lot of people will reach for food when they're stressed, because when we were little and we were crying, we were given sweeties, or we were given candy, or we were given food. So we associate food with comfort. And so it's a difficult habit to break, but eating under stress is not a good idea. When you're very stressed, it's better to keep your meals very simple. So keep it to a smoothie, or a couple of, or some fresh fruit, or something simple that's not complex and complicated, and something you can eat easily and comfortably, basically. And the reason for that is when you're under stress, your digestive system doesn't produce as much of the digestive enzymes as you should. Your digestive tract is managed by the endocrine system. The endocrine system is connected to the central nervous system in the brain. So if you're stressed, the central nervous system and the brain feed into the endocrine system, and you find that the digestive tract and virtually everything else in that endocrine system is not working as efficiently as it should. That's why chronic fatigue, for example, causes adrenal exhaustion. The adrenal glands are part of the endocrine system, and anything that's part of it could be the thyroid. Chronic stress affects your thyroid gland. Chronic stress affects your adrenal gland. Chronic stress can affect reproduction. People find they can't fall pregnant because they're stressed all the time. They go on holiday and they fall pregnant. So the same with the digestive tract. The digestive tract does not work as efficiently as it should when you're under stress. So eat simply, more carefully, and eat healthier when you're under stress. What we do when we're under stress is we reach for the chocolates and the Cokes and the candy and anything else that's in our, it's the worst thing you can do. When you're under stress, consciously say, I'm just going to eat apples because I don't want to think about food. Or I'm just going to eat bananas. I don't want to think about it. I'm just going to eat very simply. I'm going to eat raw food, or I'm going to juice. So it's not a bad idea to do that, but be conscious of it, okay? Lactose intolerance can also cause excessive gas and discomfort. Anytime you've got gas, you don't even have to have the acidity. You just need to have the gas build up in your stomach. So as the gas builds up, it's pushing food that's digesting back up into the esophagus because there's nowhere else to go. Everything else is backed up. So if you have a bit of constipation, for example, your bowels are pretty compacted or full of stuff, and now you've got this gas, it's only up. And then you could actually end up vomiting from it. So lactose intolerance is the glucose that's found in dairy products. We don't produce enough of the lactase, that is the enzyme to break it down efficiently. We know that dairy products cause a lot of mucus anyway. I had my tonsils out at 4 and then just ended up with sinusitis. That's what happens with most people. You getting tonsillitis because dairy products are a very inflammatory substance to put into the body. There's no need for it. We know that the countries that consume the most dairy products are the ones that have the most brittle bone disease, the most dental decay. All right, consumption of legumes. Some people find when they eat beans, they get gas, and that's because you don't eat them regularly, so your body just doesn't produce the digestive enzymes that it needs to actually break them down. So if you have a little bit of legumes or beans or lentils in a salad, or you have some hummus, you have that is made from chickpeas, and you have a little bit every day, you find your body's making the digestive enzymes that break down that particular carbohydrate shape, which in legumes is what we call a trisaccharide. It's not a very common form of a carbohydrate chain, so we need another digestive enzyme. But if you don't ever eat them, your body will start to make it if you eat them more regularly. The other way to stop having gas from legumes as well is to make your own. Soak them overnight, pour the water off, bring it to the boil, pour that water off, and then carry on cooking it in fresh water, and you won't get the gas, because there are a lot of the gas-making properties that we need those extra enzymes for. You can literally, in those first stages, the soaking in the first stages of cooking, you can just literally boil it off and pour it off, and it helps a lot as well. All right. Changing your diet, one that contains a lot of fresh fruit and vegetables. can initially cause bloating. If you're not used to eating fresh fruit and vegetables, you can feel terribly bloated. And the reason for it is we're mixing everything together and we're going to put fruit on top of our food. Fruit digests best on an empty stomach on its own. So eat fruit alone. I, for example, will have fruit for breakfast. I might have it with some nuts and seeds if it's acid fruit. One of the things I didn't explain on here, and I'm going to explain quickly, is that this chart at the top and as well in the book, you have acid fruit over here, subacid fruit, and sweet fruit over here. So very sweet things like seedless grapes, for example. I've got some seedless grapes over here. Oh, these are such delicious grapes. I mean, enormous bunches. We get them directly from the farm over here. So the seedless grapes, for example, not a great idea to go and have that with nuts and seeds. So your nuts and seeds are down here in the protein section. Proteins and acid fruits, if you did eat them together, they would be kind of okay. Sweet fruits and carbohydrates digest better. But if you're going to have pineapples with bread on top of a pizza, you're probably going to get bad reflux for that. But if you went and did pineapples in a dish that had nuts or seeds or had chicken in it, people make a chicken dish with pineapple. It digests quite comfortably. But getting up here, you can digest those two together comfortably. Your subacid and your acid, sweet at least. What's it? Acid and subacid. And then your sweet fruit and your subacid. So your apples digest well with bananas, but your bananas don't digest well with pineapple. But pineapples and apples are good. Okay. So these are the fruits that are a little bit more bland. They're not very sweet. They're not very sour. They're not very tangy. These are the fruits, the acid ones, the ones that if you eat too much of it, like too much pineapple, can cause your mouth to feel, your tongue to feel very sensitive because it's so much vitamin C coming in. And it's a good way of your body telling itself to stop with the pineapple. Because if you eat too much food containing vitamin C, the vitamin C can be corrosive in your stomach. There's no way of gauging that when you go and put a supplement into your stomach full of vitamin C and it's got 2,000 milligrams in it, when we're designed only to have about 150 to 160 a day. So if you eat too much vitamin C, your tongue tells you whether it's a tomato, whether it's a pineapple, it'll tell you, stop. The tomato will hurt your tongue and you'll just stop. You don't know when you swallow the vitamin C tablets and you've taken too much vitamin C, and the side effects of taking vitamin C, which is considered the safest supplement to take, can be gout, arthritis, kidney stones, stomach ulcers, and osteoporosis. So just taking something like vitamin supplements in such concentrated forms can add to digestive problems like reflux. If you're taking this handful of vitamins in the morning, it's very different to taking dried juices. Like I'll take barley grass juice first thing in the morning with dried carrot and beet juice for convenience sake. It's also organic. I don't always have access to organic carrots. Some people prefer taking the barley powder in a capsule. You take it like that. You're taking in green leafy vegetables. I'll take omega essential fatty acids for the endocrine system to work properly. There are a couple of things that do in a supplement form do help you. One is if you don't have your friendly bacteria in balance in your digestive tract, you will find that your digestive tract is never working properly. So the one that works best that I've seen is this one called Flora Food. Flora Food is from a company called AIM. If you don't know where to get it, ask the person that introduced you or invited you this evening. They're usually a game changer or somebody's on the program. They know where to get the product from a company called AIM. It's the best that I've seen with people that have autism, digestive problems. It contains only the bacteria that we as humans need, because it was originally cultured from a newborn baby's digestive tract 40 years ago. So it's perfect. It works. I've seen people on other products and they don't have the results. There is something that you can take if you need. There are a couple of other pointers I'm going to say you need to watch out for, but you can get your digestive enzymes. If your digestive tract is a mess and it's not producing enough digestive enzymes, not enough hydrochloric acid, not enough amylases, when you start out, you can take digestive enzymes. Prepzymes contain all the digestive enzymes you need to digest fats and proteins and carbohydrates. But in the long term, it's better for you. Sorry, I've got something flying around here. In the long term, it's better for you to actually fast on a regular basis and let your digestive tract rest. That's important because that will help your body produce enough digestive enzymes. Unless you had something like pancreatitis. And I know people with pancreatitis just never really produce enough digestive enzymes and always end up with a problem. So then you have to take a digestive enzyme with every meal. All right, so So changing your diet to one that's more plant-based and whole food will help improve because you're getting the right kind of fiber in it and you are getting the right nutrients in it. And so when you give your body the right fiber, the right nutrients, your body works more efficiently. So any foods that are fermented, sometimes people will eat fermented foods and they'll think that that's really good for them. Some people seem to tolerate it well, others don't tolerate it well. I'm one of those that don't tolerate any things like kombucha or any fermented foods like sauerkraut. My digestive tract is not happy with them. It just gets very bloated and uncomfortable. And people say, oh, you don't have the right bacteria. I have the right enough bacteria. My stomach just doesn't like it. And there are some people like that. So you might find that it gets worse with that. Carbonated drinks. If you're drinking things with bubbles in it straight after a meal, oh my word, that's my burst. My stomach just blows up. Terrible indigestive. Even if I've eaten a healthy meal and I have something with bubbles in it, gas. If it's got gas in it, I find that that just causes more problem than anything else. Not everybody responds like that. Mark could drink a sparkling mineral water after a meal. It does nothing to him. I do it and I'm uncomfortable. So if you're uncomfortable, if you need to drink after a meal, take normal, still water like this and little sips. Just not the sort of glug, 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 glug. If you're going to pour a whole lot of water in your stomach, remember the pH of water is 7. It's going to actually bring the pH up towards a more alkaline level, less acid. And so you could find that that actually just stops your digestive process working efficiently because it's diluted the pH in your stomach. And so it's better to drink a glass of water before you eat. So if you know you get thirsty, is drink a nice glass of water before you eat. And then if you're hungry, try and drink only 2 hours afterwards. I mean, not hungry, thirsty. I have been thirsty after a meal. Anytime I can get thirsty really quickly, I find I've either suck on some ice or I take little sips occasionally, just sort of every 10 minutes, there's a little sip. So I can drink a glass of water could take me an hour or two to drink, and then I don't have that problem. But just pouring in a whole lot of liquid, whether it's juice or water right on top of a meal, it's just going to bring it to a grinding halt for if you are prone to suffering from reflux. Okay, and then there's the onion and garlic family. Onion and garlic contain natural antibiotic properties, and antibiotics in any shape, size, or color can destroy your friendly bacteria. And when you destroy your friendly bacteria, your digestive tract will never work as efficiently as it should. You need to make sure that you are maintaining that digestive bacteria balance, combining your food properly, carbohydrates with vegetables and salads, proteins with vegetables and salads. Stop the fermentation taking place. You're not sterilizing. Alcohol will sterilize your digestive tract. We were spraying alcohol all over everybody's hands during the whole lockdown debacle, and that was to kill any bacteria and viruses. What do you think it does in your stomach? If you're consuming alcohol, if you have a glass of wine with your meal, always take your intestinal flora. Take that on a regular basis and make sure you're having at least 1 to 2 a day, 1 in the morning, 1 in the evening. If you are eating a lot of onion and garlic that is raw and not cooked, it's the one vegetable I say cooked to death because of that antibiotic property, can upset your friendly bacteria. If you consume alcohol every day, you are sterilizing your digestive tract. Make sure that you're putting the bacteria back in. It's very important for that. So very important. And then to remember, obviously, with the food combining, making sure that you're eating proteins and vegetables and salads and carbohydrates and vegetables and salads. And if we do that, you will find that you are functioning, your body is functioning in a much better way. Your digestive tract is working more efficiently. If you're able to fast once a week, 1 day a week, every month, or do 3 days once a month, you will find that your digestive tract starts to heal itself. If you would like a program to follow that will help your body heal itself anyway, that you make sure that everything's properly combined, our 30-day detox is ideally designed specifically for that. If you need to know anything about our program, 30-day detox was for that. The 100 Days to Health leads you slowly to the food combining and teaches you as you go along. The 100 Days is adding more good things and more good food and more good habits to your existing lifestyle. The 30 days is taking away all the bad stuff, giving you only the good stuff. Everything's perfect, but it's tough. It's tough. And that's available. And there's also the 365 for those of you who want to jump in and actually say, I'm tired of playing games with my body. I want to learn how my body works. I want to know how my digestive tract, I want to know what my liver does. And in basic English language, written simply, it's easy to understand. And that's what I teach you. The 365, if you're on that program, you can come to all the Zoom sessions as long as I'm still alive or somebody else is taking my place. And there are a lot of people training up who will be able to take my place, be able to help you on the Zoom sessions. I am, however, planning to live until 2078, which is when I turn 120. It's a personal goal. I'd like to prove that your bladder, your bowels, and your brain can still be in a good condition when you're that old. God willing, I hope to get there. But at the end of the day, if you're looking for help, go to wholeworldwell.com and you can choose a program that you'd like to be on. We also offer the weekly Zoom support where you can ask me questions, any questions you'd like to ask me. That's not a problem. So wholeworldwell.com is if you want to choose a program to follow. Mary Ann's MP for moving pictures, maryannsmp@gmail.com is to write to us to get a email digital version of the food combining chart you can fill out yourself and a digital version of the little booklet on the digestive tract. And if you follow that, you can do it yourself. If you want to be part of a community and you want to keep asking questions and have the support, the community support is amazing. And people save themselves enormous amounts of money by actually eating well because you don't get sick anymore. And it's an amazing place to be. All right. Now, I've had this strange thing happen with my screen, and it's got huge, and all the questions that have gone to the side, I don't know whether it's the mouse that's been affected or what it is. I can't see where your questions are. Maybe I can move it across and find out. I don't know. Let's see. Ha! There we go. All right. Has it started yet? I've got nothing. All right. All right. Please help with the... I'm going to put that email address on there. If you want to email us, it's www. Hold on a second. www. Okay. .Maryann. No, not whole. worldwell.com is to find out about our programs. If you're wanting to study nutrition and help other people as well, we've got programs for you. And then the actual, let's go, that is, all right. And then the one to email us, if you want to email us, that's to get the chart and the booklet. That is maryannsmp @gmail.com. All right. And that is there. Michelle says, I have a friend with a hernia who also has colon cancer. What do you suggest? Gosh, Michelle, if you've got cancer, you can't play games. You can't take time. I would get her onto the 30-day detox program and then get her onto the 365 so she can learn about her body and understand that cancer is not a death sentence. Many people survive, and some survive with treatment but then get it again because they didn't sort out the problem. Why do we get cancer? Dr. Colin Campbell says you can load the gun with all the stress. You can load it with pollution. You can load it with preservatives and additives and processed foods. But the thing that pulls the trigger for cancer, in his book, The China Study, he explains it very clearly. This is the book over here, The China Study. It's a fantastic book to read on cancer and any other health issues, on studies that showed that what pulls the trigger is when you're consuming more than 5 to 10% of your calorie value from animal products, okay? So very important for her to get onto a plant-based diet immediately, but she needs to know why she's doing it, and the 365 will do that. She also needs support, so I would get her into the group, but the 30-day detox is honestly where she needs to go because the food combining is correct from the word go. The recipes are all properly combined. Oh, and you also get some recipes in the booklet, by the way. There's some great recipes in that booklet on digestive tract. So I would get her on the 30-day detox, and I would get her onto the 365 so she can learn more about her body, so she doesn't have to feel like everybody else knows how her body works, but she doesn't know. Or he or she, he or she. All right. Okay. Right. Okay. I have a friend with, okay. Sorry, I was mistaken. All right. Anybody got any other questions you'd like to ask? You can go ahead and ask it right now. I'm happy to answer it. So while you thinking about that, a couple of other things I think I may have left out. Let me just say. Oh, yes. A couple of other things. I said insufficient enzyme production. I told you about the PrEP signs. The next one is wheat or gluten intolerance. Very often, it could just be wheat that's causing digestive problems and causing a lot of bloating, but gluten is the protein that's found in wheat and rye and oats and barley, the grains, not in the leaves, not in the juice. So when we eat those grains on a regular basis, I mean, if I have gluten, it takes me 3 weeks to recover from it. My skin gets dry. My digestive tract comes to a grinding halt. I am constipated. I can age. It's the weirdest thing. Mark says I aged 10 years in 5 days of eating one slice of homemade whole wheat organic bread. It doesn't matter where it comes from. Gluten affects me really badly. So some people are affected badly and some aren't. And I think part of the reason is I grew up eating bread. We took sandwiches to school. There's sugar in bread to make the yeast rise. Your body goes into a state when it has low blood sugar from the sugar that's in it. And I was a sugar junkie. My blood sugar would drop. Your body goes into panic state, starts to produce antibodies to get with whatever protein came into the body. And that usually is gluten or it's dairy, and then you end up with these autoimmune diseases and digestive problems. But gluten can affect the digestive tract really badly, from constipation to diarrhea to IBS and to reflux problems as well. And then the other one, as I said, is that just taking vitamin supplements, a traditional vitamin supplement, where somebody has come up with a formula. When somebody's come up with a formula for vitamins, you know that they are man-made. They're you've got a molecule of vitamin C, not with a carbon molecule attached to it. You can't use vitamins in this form. You can use 4 to 10% maximum if you're lucky. To get a carbon molecule attached to it, you have to grow something in the ground. And when it comes out of the ground and you go and eat something like a tomato, for example, the vitamin C in here is completely organic. It's got that, when I say organic, it's not necessarily grown without pesticides. It's got that organic structure to it. You've got the carbon molecule. So the vitamin C in a tomato, you can use 100% of that. So this is a smarter way to get it. Vitamin supplements in concentrated forms do cause problems with the digestive tract and the urinary tract as well. All right, so what else is there to do? All right. Any other questions you've got? Oh, that looks like we're over then. Here we go. Miriam, please, what do you think about using onion on the scalp to deal with alopecia? I've seen some hair loss, homemade remedies made with onion. Gosh, Edith, that's a tough one. I'd hate to put onion on my head. Oh, my word. You know, the best way to get your hair growing properly is to get your thyroid gland working properly, which is part of the endocrine system. And the thyroid gland works properly. It doesn't like onion and garlic in it. I don't know about putting it on your head. I think maybe the body thinks you're going to die and starts growing more hair. I've never seen anything like that. I've seen they have shampoos these days with caffeine in it to stimulate it. But I do know there are essential oils like rosemary, for example, that are known. Rosemary oil taken from the rosemary plant and in a shampoo, in a natural shampoo. We have somebody who makes shampoos for us that doesn't have sodium lauryl sulfate in it and has essential oils in it like rosemary. Because sodium lauryl sulfate is the foaming agent in most shampoos, and it actually breaks your hair follicle right at the base here. And so your hair falls out because you're using traditional shampoos. When I say traditional, in the westernized world. So try and use something more natural that doesn't contain sodium lauryl sulfate. And there are good shampoos out there that you can use like that. I do, and I have read of people who don't wash their hair at all, and their hair looks, I've met people, their hair looks amazing. But I've tried it for about 6 weeks, and then I just start getting the heebie-jeebies. It's just, my hair does feel amazing. It is incredible, but it's like I'm not bathing. I mean, we're out here and the air is polluted, and then your hair can actually get dirty. But I suppose you could jump into a pond or something, but we don't live in such a natural environment. So your hair breaking and falling out of your head if you never massage your scalp, instead of putting onions on your scalp, I just brush your hair, hang upside down, put your head right down, let your hair all flop forward, and brush it on a regular basis so that the blood flows to your thyroid gland. And it's your thyroid gland that stimulates your hair to grow properly on your head. It's your endocrine system that you're dealing with. So you've got to get the endocrine system working properly. And that's everything from exercise to fresh air to eating properly to chronic stress to high protein diets causes hair loss very badly as well. But the hair loss is another subject. I can talk about it another time. Next month, we'll be talking about autism. I'll be talking about that with somebody who raised twin autistic boys who are now completely cured and healed. And she says people believe you can't heal it, but she says I've seen it with my own eyes, not only in my own boys, but others. And her kids were literally bashing their heads and rocking all day long. So it's a fascinating thing, and I'll be talking to her. If you know anybody that has problems with autism or any children with problems, that's a must-see, right? Eye-opening session, Marianne. What would be the cause of excessive burping that sounds like a cow in one's stomach? Thank you. Neo, that could be anything from bad food combining. It could be dairy products. Dairy products can cause a lot of gas, big gas, like a cow, really can. But so too can just badly food combine. The minute your food ferments, remember you're making all of this and gas. So when you put those together, you get fermentation, you get gas. You could produce more gas than somebody else. Some people may have a little bit of gas and you don't even notice them passing. Somebody else has a lot of gas and it's boop. But again, onion and garlic can do a lot of gas as well. Lots. I know a lot of people. I know I get a horrible gas trapped in my stomach with onion and garlic. And it would be a relief for some people to be able to burp that loud burp, but they can't. Sometimes it just gets trapped and it gets stuck, and then that's really painful. As a kid, I used to tell my mother it felt like somebody was sticking a knife in my stomach and twisting it. And they called it a spastic colon, but it was gas that was trapped. And it was what I was eating, basically. All right, Michelle, can you do a webinar on autoimmune and lupus diseases? I'm running into this quite a bit. Michelle, I can. I do know that on YouTube, on our YouTube channel, if you go through all the different things, there's one on the immune system and there's one on also autoimmune diseases. Have a look at it and see if it's current enough from you. And then remember to remind me, I'll put it on the list. Maybe do that in June or July. Edith says, I'm using your shampoo and hair conditioner, but the traction alopecia doesn't go away. Traction alopecia. Edith, it could be lots of other things. That's why I say if there's chronic stress, if you're not massaging your scalp to actually loosen, if you never brush your hair and you never massage your scalp, it's like the hair follicles actually get choked. And so you've got to massage your head a lot. That's very important. Got to look at your diet as well. So Edith, you'd be a great person to do a health assessment on. You can send it to Claudia at info@wholeworldwell.com. If you do a health assessment, ask her for one so we can have a look at your history. To make a call on something like that without knowing what your history is, what you've used, what you've taken, what you've tried to use in the past to get your hair going, how much stress is in your life, how much exercise you get, how much outdoor time you spend, all of that I would need to know. And then I can help you with that. All right. Thank you for wonderful information. Mark says I really have to go get on top of the gout. Just cannot suffer from it any longer. Gout's pretty easy to deal with, Mark. It's a great one. I would recommend you get onto the 100 Days to Health and get into the Zoom sessions, and I can really help you with that one. Gout, arthritis, anything where you're having inflammation in the joints, even fibromyalgia where it's more in the muscles, those are pretty easy things to do. But when you combine your food properly, it makes a big difference because alcohol, acetic acid, and ammonia will all make your gout worse. We know that alcohol affects gout. And you may not be drinking it, but you're making it every single day. So you've got to get that out. Acetic acid out as well. It makes a big difference. And for now, I would do food combining, and I would remove all gluten from your diet. Get gluten out and get essential fatty acids in. Take omega in capsule form with your barley life. And when you take that on a regular basis, your adrenal glands make natural anti-inflammatories, that helps you to deal with your gut efficiently. So I'll leave you with that. But if you want ongoing help, then you get onto one of the groups. 100 Days to Health would be a great help for you there. All right. Edith says, I'll try to do what you suggest. Handy Mandy says, I have a hiatus hernia for 20 years plus. Gallbladder removed 2 years ago. Had pancreatitis at the time as well. Symptoms is reflux, GERD, breaking up wind. On meds to control any other variant. Start with this, Handy Mandy. Start with this. Be very strict about this. Get the booklet and the food combining chart and follow it very, very carefully. For anybody who is really struggling like you, it's really good to get into a support group, because you're going to run up against problems. You're going to not know what to do. And then who do you ask? If you're in the support system, you can ask me weekly in the Zoom sessions. And you can also ask your game changer. Game changer is the person that manages the social media group. You'll be in a group, and then in that social media group, people will share their experiences, they'll share their recipes, they'll share their successes, and it's a wonderful support system to get into. But very important, start with this. This is where you start, not mixing proteins and starches. It's the most important place to start. Then things like exercising before you have a meal, very important. I didn't actually cover that. Very important to exercise. Exercise regulates at least 16 different hormones, and many of those will affect your digestive tract. You've got your autonomic nervous system, which is like your body just knows what it needs to do without you having to tell it what to do, like secrete hormones, do all of the stuff. We know that when we exercise, the digestive tract always works more efficiently. So it's not just the eating side of it, it's the other habits in your lifestyle and your diet as well. So very important, exercise, get outdoor time, don't mix proteins and starches, and make sure, but the 100 Days to Health will help you and support you on that and get all those habits going. So I would get onto that as soon as possible. Alrighty, I think I've answered all of your questions. Any others before I go? Remember to take what I've told you tonight and actually do it, because it works. You can say, well, I heard that, that's really nice, and then go off and forget it, and nothing's going to change. If you go and you apply it, then you'll see, like that mom did, and she came and she was in tears, saying she'd spent so much time and so much effort on this child, and spent these first 2 years of his life in a very stressful environment. And she said, I could have done away with all of that had I known this. And then she was encouraged to learn more about her body. Learn about your body. Don't just stop here. Learn how your body works. Learn how the systems work. It's a fascinating body. Get curious about your body. Find out why the wax in your ear is red sometimes and other times yellow. Find out why you get a postnasal drip. All this stuff is not complicated to do, but start by reading more about your body. Hanging out with people that are asking questions as well. It's what happens in our Zoom sessions and in the social media groups. Everybody's asking questions, and people are like, I'm learning so much. This is so amazing. And it doesn't feel like you're working at it. It's not that you need to write an exam on it. It's just you need to know how your body works so you can make better decisions. All right. Handy Mandy, ankylosing spondylitis, the same as for gout. Ankylosing spondylitis is a form of arthritis, and it's usually in the spine, and it's mostly in men, but it can also be in women, and it's very often in young people. But what causes it has a lot to do with your diet. It has a lot to do with the way you handle stress as well. Exercise and sunlight's imperative, and so is taking all the gluten out of your diet. Those essential fatty acids, the omega capsules, I would take at least 6 a day, possibly up to 18 a day, to get your body making natural antihistamines and anti-inflammatories. Your body makes natural anti-inflammatory substances, but it can't do it if you're not getting essential fats in your diet. It won't do it if you're not exercising. If you're struggling to walk because you're in such pain, even if it's a little bit of walking to the gate and back, and it just starts with small amounts gradually you're just adding these small amounts of exercise and you're increasing them as you start to improve. But I have dealt with several people over the years with ankylosing spondylitis. They've got to be on a gluten-free diet. You ideally should be whole food and plant-based, and you need to not be mixing proteins and starches, because alcohol, acetic acid, causes inflammation in the body. So does ammonia, for that matter. So it makes a big difference. All right? No gluten. You're probably going to have to get rid of animal products as well. In the Lancet Journal of October 1991, I think it was, there was a study showing that the only diet that showed that helped people with arthritis was a gluten-free plant-based diet. And that they found gets rid of arthritis. To get the support and the knowledge that you need, join the group. The 100 Days to Health is a fantastic program for that. 30-day detox is if you want radical transformation. It's hard, it's radical. With 30 days, you see dramatic results. 100 Days to Health is gentle. You take your time. 365, you want to be healthy for life. You're not playing games anymore. You're not dabbling anymore. You want to stay healthy and be healthy and reap the benefit of being healthy 365 days of the year. Right, I'm going to say thank you. God bless you. It's my time to go, and yours as well. I've had you for a good hour and a half. And stay healthy. Make better choices. We're here to support you and help you. I will be doing the talk on autism in a month's time. Make sure that you subscribe to our channel, our YouTube channel, and you click the little notification bell, because then you'll be notified what's coming up, when it will be, and what the topic will be. Make sure that you subscribe there. Make sure that you send the email if you want. It must come to this address, maryannesmp@gmail.com. If it goes to any other address, the free, it only gets sent from that address. So make sure that you've got that address. So you may have to watch this again if you forget the address, but if you've written it down, maryannesmp@gmail.com will get you the food combining chart at the booklet. Okay, it'll take a time because very often we have a lot of people sending their emails, so it takes, but usually by the end of this week coming up, you should all have your chart and your booklet. God bless you. Stay well. Make better choices. And you can look forward to an amazing, amazing, amazing life ahead. Mark and I haven't had a doctor's bill for over 30 years, and we used to have a lot before that. We haven't taken any medication, no painkillers, nothing for that time. No antacid medication. It's a wonderful sense of freedom, living in the sweet spot where your body is just working beautifully all the time. And it's there for anybody. Anybody, doesn't matter how much money you have or don't have, how much time you have, it's easy. You don't need time or money. This stuff is really easy. Just decide to do it and go ahead for it. God bless you, and I might see you in the Zoom later on in the week. Bye.